After some technical difficulties, we are finally rolling. So, firstly, I wanted to say thank you very much for having me here. So, the way that I know Richard and reached out to you was you came for a ref evening lecture and you spoke about how AI and it's just going to change everything. So, please introduce yourself to the world and what you do.
Thanks, Patrick. Well, thanks for that very kind intro as well. I'm Richard Pickering. I am Director of Strategic Foresight and Intelligence for the EMEA and Asia Pacific businesses of Cushman Wakefield, which is quite a long intro already. But in my role here, I think about what's over the horizon, think about long-range trends, how they're kind of creating new paradigms or new ways of doing things, and then figure out how that might affect the strategy of our clients, both occupiers and investors today, right. And help our clients make good decisions in that context. That's my main job. And I also serve as a kind of advisory function to the business on things like data and intelligence, which is what I was doing more actually in my previous job as well.
Yeah, so what's your journey? So let's go back from the start. Where did you grow up? Where was school? How was school for you?
So it's quite a twisty turny journey. So I grew up in Yorkshire, in a little village just outside Hull. I had a fantastic upbringing. I had happy memories, etc.
Yeah.
But I think it got to a point where I was kind of seriously considering careers, and I thought probably I would do best coming down to London and doing some time here. If I'm honest, I came down with the intention of being here for 2 years. And
oh, really?
That was quite a while ago. But the first time actually I made that journey, I came to be a lawyer. That was what I studied in. I did a law degree in LPC, and I came down and practiced in the city here, and quite quickly found out that although my parents thought that was a great career, I probably didn't see myself in it. It wasn't really for me. I was working in a niche commercial property practice, and as a consequence of that, I could see what surveyors and other people were doing, and I thought that's more what I want to do. This is going to be a cultural reference well before your time. But there was a show on TV called The Property Ladder. It was kind of a lady called Sarah Beanie ran it. If some of your older viewers are watching, they might recognise this, but it was a kind of point in the market where anyone could do up a house and they could never lose money, and the values just kept going up, and I thought I'm going to do that. In the end, I was convinced to do a bit more study around that. I cross-qualified as a chartered surveyor. And came back down to London to start on the graduate scheme at Cushman's.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That was 20 years ago. So I've been here 20 years, which feels like an incredibly long time. But in that time, I've had 5, 6 now completely different jobs. Started out in brokerage, did a big stint in development like shopping centres, regeneration schemes, central London, and then became head of strategy for our UK business, did an MBA, ran our insights team for a bit, then moved into innovation for our European business. That was more digitalisation and analytics, and my current role kind of came from there. That's been a constant theme of mine the last 10 years that I think and speak about the future.
Nice. So 20 years at Cushman. What is the thing that's made you stay? What's that good thing about Cushman and Wakefield for you to last this long, and I suppose the future as well?
Yeah, I think a few things actually. One is every time I felt restless, they've given me a new job, right. which has been. I'm the person. I'm a curious person. I like to stay curious, and I always like new challenges. So having usually people find that in new businesses. I've been very lucky that Cushman's have accommodated those new challenges within this business. Secondly, I would say the people. I think when you're studying, you probably don't see that as readily, but it's one of the biggest factors that will affect how happy you are at work is the people that you work with. And if you pick the wrong culture, then you are you won't enjoy yourself as much.
No.
And I guess the other thing is, we've always been a business that. We haven't set ourselves an ambition to be the biggest business globally. That's not our ambition. but we do want to be the best business. We value traits such as being, driven, but also entrepreneurial, visionary. Those are the kind of things that we value here, and those are value statements close to my own personal purpose. So, if you find somewhere that aligns with where you feel comfortable, then it becomes a very easy place to stay.
Nice. So you've got your other consultancy firms, your Savills, your CBRE. What do Cushman do different, which makes you stand out from these other competitors? Because it's a tough market. It's a tough market.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it probably anchors back on some of those things I've just said. I think, if you're in a top tier of firms, you can all say, well, we've got some great clients. You can also, we've got some great projects. I think if you look at, more of a strategic level, if you look at what's a sticky advantage to a business these days, because firms like ours don't tend to hold assets, it tends to be quite capital light. The things that create advantage are predominantly culture, which sounds a bit airy-fairy, but it's actually quite a science to how you create a culture. That a good culture attracts the best talent, and it also means that it gives you permission to act in a slightly different way to other companies. Increasingly, being a big business does have platform advantages, particularly as technology becomes a bigger factor of competition. Being at a certain scale allows you to invest in that technology efficiently, so we can bring that platform advantage, and a further kind of platform advantage comes from footprint.
Nice.
So, we would say to our clients in London that we have access to the best international occupiers and investors, and when we're selling or leasing a building for them here, they know that we bring that kind of depth of international expertise to those jobs.
Yeah. So I recently done work experience with the Located team. They're one of your clients, actually, and I sat in on a few of their asset management meetings with a few of your team as well. And it was the depth of knowledge that your team do have. The expertise did make you stand out, and everyone at Located spoke highly of the Cushman and Wakefield team, said that they always do a good job for them. Cushman and Wakefield have got a summer internship scheme and a graduate scheme as well. Do they do any sort of foresight consulting in that team?
So in the last few years, I have had graduates work directly for me in some cases, and I tend not to be in a traditional area of the business to recruit graduates, because we tend to kind of try and make sure that we're giving experience that maps very easily to the APC requirements. But the APC requirements are becoming more flexible, actually, and certainly I would hope the RSCS could see the value of what we do here. There's a few different kind of plays on this. In the platform that I run on, and indeed the one I ran previous to this job, it's an international group. So in my previous role, I managed about 100 people across Europe, and they were in all kind of parts of that region. I've now got a smaller core team. My number 2 is based in Warsaw, and we'll have a kind of graduate role probably in Warsaw actually this year. But we're also working on a strategy that allows us to embed a broader range of people within our work. For instance, when you think about foresight, I think a core strength of foresight, strong foresight, comes from having plural perspectives. So I want as many people as possible with different experiences, different backgrounds feeding into that. And I was discussing, for instance, with our early careers manager this week, actually, how we might even bring in interns into the foresight platform. Nice. That might not necessarily be fully allocated. It could be like a day a week or something like that.
Yeah.
But I would hope that they would get good experience from being there, but also I get a benefit from fresh perspectives.
No, exactly. So you mentioned back in the evening lecture at the start of this year how important it is for students or young people as a whole to have that future mindset, to embrace AI and learn on AI and sort of ride that AI wave. Yeah. So I think it would definitely be beneficial for students to have a part of their rotation with your team, just because it is the future. That it's when I'm your age, that's what I'll be in the moment of. You know,
look, I'll tell our early careers team that. Yeah, look, I mean, I think one of our roles is to be a catalyst for the wider business and to inculcate in the broader business, again, culture of learning and a culture of being at the cutting edge. That's what we pride ourselves in our team. I don't want to be in the top tier. I want to be at the bleeding edge of what we do, and I believe we are. And that not everyone in the business has to be in that place, but I think particularly with new technologies that are moving at such a pace like AI is, I think people need help and guidance as to what they should be doing and how they should be thinking, and you need to give it dedicated focus to do that. And I've done training for other people on things like AI, for instance, and I like to think that they then can go on and train other people, and that becomes so catalytic.
Do you think we're underestimating how fast AI is growing in the world?
I think it depends on who we are in that context, and also what it means by AI growing. So I'm trying to unpack your question here.
Yeah.
So I think the property industry in general has a habit of underestimating the pace of new technology. We're not known to be front foot as an industry, which I think provides a lot of opportunity for those who are to gain an advantage. I think my take on it, I mean, the technology is delivering at a blistering pace, AI. Things that were just not possible 3 months ago are now possible, and so 3 months is now a long time in AI. What I would say, and this is rarely the case, but it's certainly now, is that the technology is moving quicker than the adoption, quite a lot quicker. In fact, I think we saw this. Obviously, AI has been around for a long time, but we saw this big explosion 2-3 years ago with ChatGPT and other things coming out. And I think because it was a cute strategy, they simplified it, a bit like Google did. They simplified the search engine. ChatGPT simplified the input. They made it kind of human. They made it kind of easy to use, and they made it give to the whole world for free. Which meant that you suddenly got mass scale consumer adoption of the technology. And now businesses are now behind the consumers trying to catch up with implementing that into more structured workflows in the business. So the pace of adoption in the next few years isn't going to come from the rate of technological progress. It's going to come through the rate at which organisations feel capable of adapting their workflows to embed that technology.
So how are you using AI in your work?
Me or
the company as a whole?
The company, yeah. Okay. So I mean, I think there's a few different layers to it. So there's a kind of base productivity layer. I mean, we've rolled out Copilot. We've also rolled out selectively ChatGPT Emphasis Prize. We've got other kind of productivity-based chatbots. I've got to say personally, I mean that's doubled my own productivity. I would say, I find it incredible technology, but I guess the question from a business perspective is, how does then the business see that advantage? And if I'm obviously twice as productive, hopefully the business will see that benefit. But we also have more enterprise-led initiatives. So there are a series of tools that we've either partnered on or developed ourselves in some form. All of this sits in on top of a bedrock of data management. If you want to get proprietary advantage from AI, you need to have proprietary data to use on it, and that comes through a long structuring program we've put around that. And then obviously on top of that is the insights layer, and how do you gain value from it. And the team I used to run actually has been responsible for setting up from kind of very modest things like BI dashboards all the way through to agentic solutions that we're now delivering to the business. So big believer that the technology on itself doesn't deliver the advantage. It's the people who know how to get the most out of the assets that the technology creates that are going to drive that performance.
How do we think we can get the most out of AI? Because I remember you said the best way to learn about AI is to ask AI to teach you about what it can do. Are you still you're still by them thoughts, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone learns in a slightly different way. Throughout my life, I've done a few pieces of academia in my life. I've always found that doing is the best way to embed knowledge.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing better than just to go and play with a chatbot. And in fact, to help colleagues, I wrote down 100 slides. Each slide was a use case for ChatGPT at the time. This wasn't necessarily a business use case, it's just things that I've used it for to improve my life. Every single time I've given that presentation, 100% of people have signed up to ChatGPT Plus. So, and they've come back to me afterwards and saying, I get it now, I really understand it.
Yeah.
But I would say anyone, and especially if you're a student, you should be spending at least an hour a week. If you're a student, probably 2 or 3 hours a week, just playing with it, getting used to it. There are some people, quite a lot of people in the world actually, who've never ever used generative AI.
Oh, really?
I think less so in your age group, but still some. But in the world of business, it goes all the way up to 65 business.
Yeah.
So there are people who haven't used it at all. And particularly what I say to the older people in business is, if you don't use this, you're throwing away your 40 years of advantage to someone who's 40 years younger than you.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. What sort of is your preferred platform for AI? Is it ChatGPT, Perplexity? Do they all do around the same sort of thing? I think I used Perplexity a little bit because it gave you quite a good structure for my essays. So back in university, we get told that you can use it for initial ideas, plan your essay for you, but that's sort of it. Perplexity was really good at that, and I've recently got ChatGPT Plus, and that's just, it's photoshopping stuff for me for ATRE purposes, and I could probably get an ATRE up here and Cushman Wakefield there, sort of thing.
I use ChatGPT Plus as my kind of workhorse. That I think is doing the job I do. A lot of it is about ideation and kind of thinking about how the world's changing, etc. And ChatGPT is very good at that. It's very good as a sparring partner. It's less good at accuracy, and it lies to you occasionally. I think personally, and you'll know this if you've got Plus, is because of the memory capability, it becomes compoundingly beneficial to you over time.
Yes.
So you're not just using it as a transactional ask question, get answer. You're using it as an assistant over time.
Yeah.
And so I think my guess is, one model might be up there today, another one. I think you've just got to back a horse and trust that they'll keep pace with each other over time, because the memory function is the most powerful in there.
It is very useful. How do you think it's going to change the world around us? I know it's going to change pretty much anything. What do you think is going to change the most with AI growing?
I mean, if you break AI back to its kind of foundational purpose, it compresses cognitive activity. So the time, the cost of delivering knowledge work is massively compressed, and the marginal cost of delivering it is zero. So it's world changing in that regard. So if you think about our economy in the UK at least, we're about 70% services. Most services have got some knowledge basis to them. So this is a broad-based technology that's going to impact significantly on our jobs. I think there's a lot of concern at the moment about jobs, and is this going to take away jobs? Maybe, who knows? But what it certainly will do is it will change what those jobs look like. Usually technologies aren't sophisticated enough to remove jobs. They are sophisticated enough to remove tasks within jobs. And if you think about the tasks that it will replace quickly, they are administrative, routine, bureaucratic, those kind of things. So we're going to be doing a lot less of that kind of stuff as humans going forward. And there are a lot of other factors. I mean, it's cognitively superior to us in many respects. I think combined downstream with things like quantum, it's going to revolutionise healthcare, financial systems, how we produce energy. It's going to change the world, candidly. And it's also allows mass personalisation at scale. So what I mean by that is you can have everything tailored to you now. You don't have to accept a standard unit off the shelf. And that's going to really revolutionise how we do education. It's going to revolutionise how we do shopping in the future. I mean, these aren't small impacts. These are not efficiency-based impacts. These are systemic, world-changing impacts.
Do you think it needs to be talked about more in school? Or
I mean,
taught more?
If it's not, yes. My wife's a teacher. She disagrees with me on this. But, I mean, even just how education is delivered in the future, I imagine we're going to move from a world where you've got large class sizes, one teacher to 30 kids or whatever, to, and this is true of higher education also, to ones where you'll have your own personal bot on your desk. The teacher will move around and you'll be having personalised tuition.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I think it will very much change the university delivery model.
Do you think the property industry is quite resilient to the growth of AI? Obviously, we'll use it to streamline ideas and make work more efficient. But as a whole, do you think we're quite safe?
I think what I would say is technology, any technology, but including AI, has an uneven impact. What I mean by that is it doesn't affect all things in the same way. And I think some elements of what we do today in the real estate industry won't be things that we do tomorrow, like any industry. But I was reflecting on this earlier today. I had lunch with someone who I started on the graduate scheme with at Cushman's, and we were saying, like in 2005 when I started, internet was still not the main driver of use. Everyone had a local computer. There was no Google Maps. We didn't have smartphones. Like there was no real internet-based research. It wasn't kind of widely used back then. All of those things have come in since. Cloud computing, everything that we see today. And we're still successful. We're in business. And what largely has happened is the gains have accrued to the customer. So what we do now is we deliver the same service to our clients. We deliver it at a quicker rate with better outputs. Our clients benefit from that. The gains didn't accrue to the technology. They accrued to the client, and we maintained and actually grew our margin in that period.
Nice.
So the path of AI remains to be seen, but I think it's probably to the point we started with. If you remain curious and you adapt around the change you see, and you've got a complicated business with challenging tasks and judgment that are needed, like our business is, then I think you'll be resilient. If you're delivering commodity work with no real value add, you shouldn't be a business anyway, candidly.
No. What do you think are some of the negatives of AI? Obviously, it's got lots of positives, but would you say they outweigh the negatives as well?
I mean, in the long term, yes. Like any technology, I mean, if you look at the Industrial Revolution as a kind of analogue for this, so GDP was flat for about 3 centuries before the Industrial Revolution, and then it went up something like 50-fold within the space of 50 years. Like massive unmeasured growth because of mechanical automation. That positioned the UK as a leader in the Industrial Revolution, as one of the global superpowers. It stimulated our economy in a way that drove wealth, removed inconveniences, created new efficiencies in our economy. And so long term, it's been hugely impactful and positively impactful. In the short term, there are always going to be bumps around that. So in the Industrial Revolution, wealth skewed to the industrialists and away from individuals. Individuals who had previously been in artisanal roles were now in factory roles, working longer hours. And some people lost their jobs and then had to find new ones. So there's always that bump when you see something like this. So I guess the answer to your question depends on the horizon. Like, if we're looking at a long horizon, this is undoubtedly going to be beneficial. In the short term, disruption's always tricky.
Will be. Yeah. Data centers. How has that growth been, say, in the past 10 years? Because you've got a podcast channel, and there was a guy on there, and he was talking about how data center growth is increasing massively with the rise of AI. Do you think we can sustain that growth?
I mean, data centers are the top performing sector in real estate at the moment, across a number of metrics. The growth there is it's just not heard of really, and it's obviously it's building on an undercurrent of demand that's come from normal computing and streaming requirements, but now obviously has been jettisoned by AI. Again, AI's impact is uneven. So the main kind of two types of AI-led data center. There's like the training centers where the big hyperscalers are building their next model, thousands of GPUs working over time to kind of build the next layer of intelligence. That's very localized kind of power needs that then obviously influences site selection. And then, going forward, the bigger driver is going to be inference centers. When you send a prompt to ChatGPT, it calls it from some data center somewhere.
Yes.
I would say our energy grid globally is not in the right shape, and it hasn't been in the right shape for a long time, not least because it's driven by fossil energy, and that has obviously all the sustainability challenges that we know about, but also it's expensive. I think what we'll see in the next 10 years is, I don't think power will keep up with demand, I should say, as a point. So data centers are going to be in really deep supply, deep demand in the next few years. But I think that will provide the catalyst for governments to restructure their energy grids. And I think that will be very positive long term, because I think it will lead to a higher renewable rate within those grids.
What are Cushman Wakefield doing with data centers? Are most of your clients data center companies nowadays?
We act for a number of the big hyperscalers, certainly, and we act for a lot of the capital backing them as well. And we have a dedicated data centers team who do leasing and land and fit out of those assets. It's a huge growth vertical for us. We're very lucky to have some fantastic clients in that space, actually. It's a benefit of being a US headquartered business. A lot of those businesses start in the States.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a huge growth vertical for us, and I suspect most people.
Have you ever been to one? A data center?
I have, a long time ago, yeah.
I've had a thought of, I really want to, I don't know how big they are. I actually really want to, I want to go to a site visit and see one, really.
I mean, they're interesting in terms of how they're a shed, but they're interested in how they're fitted out. In terms of scale, they vary very massively.
Yeah.
The big training centres, like I think Meta's Hyperion Centre, which is in, I want to say Virginia. I think Mark Zuckerberg actually put a picture online overlaying that data centre on Manhattan, and it was basically the size of Manhattan Island.
Really?
So you kind of get a feeling for the enormity of these centres. I mean, that's not your standard inference data centre, but these are the mega training centres. So there's huge money behind that, big bets, and lots of fees for agents and other people to be made along that way. Yeah.
What sort of challenges do you think we'll face in the future with, not necessarily with AI, but as a whole grand scheme of things?
Just anything.
That was so badly rephrased, wasn't it? Oh my gosh.
It's all good.
No.
I mean, there's lots of challenges.
There's a lot of challenges that we are going to face in the world.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. In property, commercial property, actually not just commercial, residential, housing crisis potentially in the future, prices are rising. Do you think that will get sorted out and balanced a bit? Because I read it said 2026 was meant to be quite a good year for commercial property, because apparently prices have reset or inflation's gone down.
Yeah, I mean, generally markets find equilibrium states. What I mean by that is when you get a period of undersupply, that elevates prices to the extent where the supply side is stimulated, essentially. And that's certainly true of offices and shopping centres, for instance. We've got a more long-standing structural undersupply of housing that hasn't been addressed. Housing is very tightly populated, tightly correlated with population growth. And so as our population in the UK has continued to rise, particularly in the southeast of England, where a lot of migration is targeted, we haven't delivered the number of homes that are needed to keep up with that supply, and that's propped up the housing market. And it's been driving consistent value growth together with easy monetary policy. But I don't see that changing, if I'm honest. I just don't see the housing supply coming forward, and successive governments haven't grasped the nettle.
Fine.
I think it's a systemic issue. Not easy solutions. One of them would be a massive public house building program like we saw post World War II, but there doesn't seem to be political appetite to do that at the moment. So I think housing is a systemic issue, arguably good for the property sector because it keeps pricing high, but not good for UK PLC attractiveness. If we want to attract the best talent to our country, we need to deliver the quality of living that people expect to go along with that.
Fine. I'm just going to move on to the working from home topic. Are you very pro office? How many times are you in the office a week?
I'm quite unique in that I'm everywhere.
Okay.
I was in Switzerland last week. I'll be in California in 2 weeks. So I travel quite a bit for my work. When I'm based in London, I typically do 3 days a week in the office. I think it's important to have that level of connection to your teams and your colleagues. And if you've got a client-facing role, I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Equally, I've got a lot of thinking to do in my job, and on the days where I'm not in, I try to structure my diary so those are my thinking and admin days. Oh. And on those days, I pick my daughter up from school, and nice. I think that's important to me also. I'm fortunate to work for an employer that sees the value of both flexibility and the camaraderie that comes in the office.
Nice. I think especially with young people being in the office, I'd like to be ideally in the office 4-5 days a week if I can, especially at a young age. When I'm just starting out my career, I can learn from people like yourselves, even if we're just sat near each other, Yeah.
Well, look, very much. And if you're in one of our agency teams, that would be the level of attendance, certainly. If you went upstairs today, you'd see a packed office full.
Nice. It's good. How's it been since COVID? Were you quite on it straight after of getting back into the office, or was it like a slow introduction?
I think, obviously, COVID was a very strange time, and obviously for the first year, it was very patchy, legally driven. I would say different. I'd say we're not different to other firms. Not different to most other businesses, in that different functions have different needs or wants to come back into the office. Right. If you're doing something that requires a lot of interpersonal work, obviously property is our deal, right? So, if you're letting properties in the city, you need to be in the city, right? Yeah. So you're not going to work from home and do that. Whereas if you're like in a finance function or, for global functions, where maybe all of their team are distributed around the world, it meant less to them to be in the office on a day-to-day basis. So I would say, I've been following the data. Obviously, that's part of my job to do that. I would say we, along with most of the property industry, have been ahead of the data. So we've been more present in the office than a lot of other firms outside of our industry have. But I kind of see it as a non-binary. I think what I find really strange about the solution on offices is that people have chosen to do it in days. I find, for instance, some days I'll start work at 7 o'clock in the morning at home. I'll do 2 hours at home, and then I'll get on the train. I'll come in, and then I'll, maybe go home at 3, and then go back home and do a couple of hours. I think people haven't figured that out yet. That you can do half a day, and the important thing is you're spending time regularly with your colleagues and your clients. But equally, we've set up our entire infrastructure in the UK to drive these massive peaks around commuting times, which feel senseless. So I just think the world hasn't worked out how to do hybrid well yet, is my view.
What do you think's been the biggest shift in the industry since you've started? Was it COVID, would you say?
There was a big shift in 2009 around the financial crisis. I think that has left its fingerprints on the industry probably longer and in more enduring ways than probably most people thought. Obviously, the immediate financial impact was redressed quite quickly, but it changed a lot of practices about how we do things in the industry. It moved us. It moved us into a slightly different zone of operations, more professional one, I would say. Other big trends in my career, last 20 years, industry consolidation has been a huge trend. So the parceling together of businesses. Wow. So the biggest one in my career has been the coming together of Cushman Wakefield and DTZ. That was 2016, I think. That was obviously a big thing, and we've seen that a fewer bigger firms have started to gain that impetus and pull away. And I think if you just think about subtle impacts that have crept up over time, technology has been the biggest one.
Yeah.
Like the way we do things is vastly different to how we did things 20 years ago. But it's a bit like when if you grow your hair, you don't realise you're growing it. If you cut your hair, you notice you cut it off.
Yeah.
So because it happens gradually, you don't really pick it up. But it's looking back to 2005, like the job's completely changed.
Crazy. Yeah. And it makes me think, if it's changed that much for you in 20 years, I've got no clue what it's going to be like for me in 20 years. I think that's right. The last 20 years has been quite quick in terms of reference to the long term, but the next 10 years is going to be quicker. I think the next 3 years is going to be quicker, really? Candidly. And I guess again it comes back to the earlier point we were discussing. If you're not an adaptive person, if you're not curious about what's next and willing to change, it's not going to be easy 10 years for you. There are a lot of people like to do things the way they've always done them. There's a certain comfort and safety to that. That's not a winning mindset in the next 10 years. What would you say students need to be doing to make themselves stand out more in this market?
Maybe do like a podcast. I joke, but yeah, seriously, I think personal profile is a good thing. You don't need to brag, but you need to have a profile. I think that's important. I think you need to come with ideas. I've never heard one manager turn away someone who came up to them with a great idea. And sometimes people are afraid to put those ideas on the table, I think. I do a bit of mentoring for various different people. I would always tell them, go to the most senior person you can as quickly as you can. You'll be surprised at how much they have time for you usually, particularly if you come to them with something that you've thought through. So in a world of AI, it's the easiest thing in the world to kind of spam 100 kind of generic letters to people.
Yeah.
Show you've done the research, show you understand their business, show you've taken the initiative. People want to, businesses want to see people who are hungry. And that's not something new, that's something that's always been the case. So be hungry, get out there, do different things, do things that differentiate yourself, build your personal profile, come to people with ideas. I think those are the things that you need to be thinking of.
Perfect. And that is everything. I want to thank you again. It's been a really good talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Cheers. Okay.